Thank you for joining me today for another episode of Hunger Hunt Feast. We're in a time of year where people are addressing habit changes, right? They're wanting to change their habits, create more healthy habits, get rid of the old habits, bad habits. And I don't think, personally, I can't address the issue of changing habits, changing behaviors without addressing addictions, right? That and if you want to stay consistent with healthy habits, the subject of addiction has to be addressed. Addiction to food, alcohol, or drugs, or abusive relationships. I mean, there's all sorts of things we can create addictions around. And I'm not a therapist. I'm not an expert in the subject, but something we all struggle with as humans, right? We all have addictions. We all have things we go to soothe pain or deal with stress. Okay. And there's always small distractions and diversions from our plan, like a special night out or a celebration, or just sometimes we have just a bad day, right? There's times where we let off the gas on the weekend, traveling. There's always things that come in that throw us off our plan. I'm not talking about that. Then there are these binges, okay, that are completely self-destructive, right? They are medicating emotional pain. And they usually involve over consuming a substance of choice, right? Whether that is food, alcohol, drugs, some sort of behavior that soothes the pain. An effort to stimulate some sort of relief, like a dopamine response, if we're getting technical about it, or look at the hormonal response we're trying to get that soothes that pain. We're trying to get a dopamine response, so it has to be enough of a hit to stimulate that. And usually, if you've had the addiction long enough, it takes more and more of it as addictions go, right? To get that same dopamine response or get enough of it to soothe the pain. And the pain usually stems from an old emotional wound. That wound, for most people, was dealt by a parent or an adult of some kind, someone who usually had a guardianship or authority over us, or maybe someone an adult that interjected themselves into our lives without permission. Okay, when we were children. But it's usually, for most of us, it's dealt by a parent, whoever raised us when we were kids. And that could be abuse of some sort, verbal, physical, or sexual abuse. Could be neglect, just not parenting, not giving of love, not affirmation, no affirmation there that needed to be there. Not a transference of care and love and acceptance. And many times we're still trying to find a way to heal that wound or fill that void, right, of what was not deposited in us or given to us. Heal the wound that was dealt to us, and even to some degree get the approval that we should have received from that person, from that parent, right? To keep somehow gaining that approval. Sometimes we look for it in other people or in other ways, because that approval is just not going to come from the parent. It's just not. It's gone. That relationship's over. Maybe the parent's gone. We're not going to get that approval, but we keep trying to fill the void for that approval, because it's needed for our development. The love and approval and acceptance of a parent as a child, to a child, from a parent to a child, is necessary for a healthy adult to be formed. And the wounds can vary, but the impact manifests into our addictions that often derail our health, our careers, our relationships. And therapy is certainly helpful. and often necessary to unpack these wounds and address them properly. And I'm not in any way suggesting a substitution for professional therapy. It's probably very beneficial for the majority of us, right? And there's many of us that absolutely need it to deal with these things, depending on what they are. And I'm not in any way trying to create a determination for that, but just sharing my own understanding of and experience with dealing with these wounds for myself, and the experience I've had in discussing with clients over the years. We have to acknowledge them. We have to acknowledge the wounds. We have to recognize that we have them first. And we have to acknowledge that they matter. We can't just shove them down and pretend like they didn't hurt, or they don't affect us anymore, or that time is over, it's behind me. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter that they hurt us. Okay. The fact that they hurt us, we have to acknowledge that they hurt and that they have a negative impact on us. We have to acknowledge that. We have to accept it. We can't keep shoving it down, especially if we're being, if we're dealing with these addictions that are trying to, soothe pain, soothe stress, we have to acknowledge there's a reason for that. Your addiction could be even work. Like you're just working to the point that you hide from relationships, that it keeps you from having to deal with maybe your family or family relationships, or some sort of other pain, keep you from having to deal with yourself, keep you from having to be alone with yourself at a time and being still, right? The addictions can come from many places, can be many things. And a desire for high achievement in your career is something we should all aspire to, but then there's a level where it becomes overwork, it's overdone, you're overachieving, so to speak, in order to get that approval, or again, avoidance of what's actually going on in our own head, what's going on in our soul, to soothe the pain. And each person has to make that determination for themselves, but there are workaholics, right? There's a reason there's that word there. There's that word workaholic. And what are they after? Where they work to the avoidance of all of the things. But we have to choose to acknowledge the pain, acknowledge the wound, acknowledge that it matters. Okay, it should not have happened, and it matters. It has an impact on us. And then, once we've acknowledged it, we have to choose to forgive the person that wounded us. Okay, whether it was the abuse or neglect, lack of acceptance, we have to choose to forgive if we want to heal. Now, forgiving isn't saying that what they did is okay. It's not excusing what they did in any way. It is saying that we don't need to personally retaliate against that person. We don't need to take revenge, right? Now, if obviously active instances of abuse, we report abuse, right? If necessary, we take legal action for protection. That's not revenge. That's just dealing with a situation at the time to prevent further abuse, right? And punitive actions against these people in an official sense, that's certainly, if that's warranted, so be it. But that's not revenge. That's justice. And so what we're saying, we forgive, that means you don't have to get that person back. You don't have to attack that person back in order to right the wrong. Okay. And forgiving them is taking them off of our hook. Like we don't need anything more from them, right? To try to heal that or to right the wrong. We don't need any more from them. They're coming off of our hook. They're coming off of our debt sheet, so to speak. Okay, we're marking them off. We're writing it off. No more. We're not going to get any more from that person. We don't need any more from that person. They're off the hook. What they did was wrong, but we're not trying to retrieve anything more from them. And we're not trying to get them to right the wrong. We don't need their approval. Now, forgiveness, it's not a feeling. So when you say you forgive someone, you may not even believe it when you say it. That's okay. But the process begins with choosing it and saying it. It's the beginning step in the process of healing, but you're going to have to forgive that person if you want that wound to heal. Otherwise, that wound stays open and you keep trying to fill it and fill the void and medicate it with your addictions, with our addictions. We keep doing that. It's a we, because we all do it, right? We keep trying to fill it. We keep trying to heal it. We keep trying to medicate it with our addictions or with things that aren't meant to heal it. And what we need to do is begin to forgive, to let that heal. And as far as I know, that's the only way to do it. The only way is to begin to acknowledge it, to accept that we were hurt, to be humble enough to accept that we were damaged by this person, that we were hurt by this person, we were wounded by this person. And then another step of humility, forgive, let them off the hook, not excusing, but releasing, right? Release that person. So think about when you want to lose weight, right? So let's say you want to lose weight or achieve any task, but let's just use weight loss as an easy example. And you choose to start the process. You say, I'm going to lose weight, right? I'm going to lose this much weight. Even though you haven't lost it yet, have you? No, you need to lose it. You haven't lost it. You need to lose it. And saying it doesn't mean you've lost it. Doesn't instantly disappear, does it? Doesn't saying you want to lose weight doesn't make the weight go away. It's the beginning of the process. You begin the process with a choice, and by verbalizing your intention, you still have the weight. You still have changes and decisions to make to lose it. You still have work to do to make it happen. And when you think of the healing and forgiving process the same way, you have to begin the choice. You have to say you're going to do it, even if you don't feel it. To start the process of losing the weight of the wound. And again, you may need some professional help with this to help you kind of walk it out and to make sure to affirm that you're going in the right direction, to validate your feelings, to validate you throughout the process, and to unpack where they were wrong and how that affected you and how you're improperly dealing with it, and then the proper steps to walk it out. We all have to choose to do the deep work, though, if we want to move forward and let go of the addictions and the cycles that impair progress with our health and our careers and relationships. So remember that you're doing this for you, so you can move forward, so you can progress in the areas of your life that are being hindered by your addictions and by your pain. Now, we've just come through a time, and many are still in this situation, depending on what country you're in or what part of a country you're in. But we're still in a situation of restriction, lockdown, limited mobility, limited access. We've got mandates in place keeping people from going certain places, of traveling. I mean, this is all very conducive to an unhealthy lifestyle, which can continue to, can further feed our addictions, right? When you're restricted from a regular work schedule or contact with family friends, a community you're plugged into, a more than usual consumption of pre-made food, processed food, or delivered from a restaurant, right? You got Uber Eats delivering whatever we want, whatever time we want, plenty more alcohol consumption, watching more entertainment at home, limited exercise, limited access to gyms, or maybe even being outside, depending on where you are, limited travel again, really, limited choices and disruption of our lives, disruption of our schedule, of routine. And it's led to more, just what do you do with your time? What do how many people put on the COVID-19, they call it the 19 pounds of, how many people I spoke to, I can't count, that said, well, I put a few pounds on over COVID. They usually 10, 20, 30. Weight gain has been much more common over the last 2 years. That's because we need to be working and we need to be connecting with other people in person. We need to be active. Okay. We're not meant to be restricted and closed down and just feeding our, trying to pass the time with food and alcohol and binge watching, entertaining ourselves somehow while being unproductive and unable to move forward with our lives. We need to be serving and focusing on goals that are bigger than ourselves. Being huddled and complacent, waiting for someone else to tell us it's safe to start living again, is not a healthy place to be, right? Letting our feelings dictate whether we work or are active or what and how often we eat, also not a productive way to live. And yet many of us, even though we've come out, I'm not saying us, because most of us listening to this podcast are not driven this way. We're much more driven, productive people. But for many people coming out of lockdown, even when they have the freedom, well, they kind of got used to being, unproductive. They got used to not having to go out and do things or get things. There's many people who express they don't understand why we can't stay locked in, why we can't just stay finding a way to work from home all the time. Everybody work from home, stay in your mom's basement, whatever it is. You just think, why do we need to go out? Really just not a clear, understanding of how our economy works, but also how humans are meant to work. We're not meant to live by feeling, make decisions based on our feelings. We're meant to make decisions based on need, on drive, right? We work, we got to be active, we got to communicate with other people, we have to engage with other people, we have to be productive to be healthy, we have to be producing. Men, especially men, guys, you are wired to produce, to create, to defend, to take action. You need to be in the hunt. You need to be on your journey, going after it, working your plan, whatever that is. And that may change, all right? But at least have a goal, have a plan, have somewhere you're going, right? Young guys, really stop chasing the next party, honestly, or the next girl, right? The girl is never your journey. The right one will join you and support you on yours, not convince you that she is your journey, right? We have to get back to creating, building, producing. Addictions and complacency are your enemies. They will destroy your health, your career, and your relationships. Not to mention your self-respect. So do the deep work on yourself, do the deep work on your soul, heal your soul, right? Heal the wounds, release those who wounded you, let go of the addictions, and
do the hard work on your life. Do the hard work on where you're headed. Where are you going with your career, with creating the life that you want for yourself, right? Who do you serve? What will you serve with your actions? Okay. Find something bigger than you, whether it is a job and you've got a career path for yourself, or your own business, or some sort of cause that drives you to put energy and resources into that to make it better. But find something bigger than you and your own desires and your own feelings, right? Do the hard work on your life, not because you have it all figured out. You'll probably never have it all figured out. And again, it may change. What your goal is, you think now is 5 years where you want to be when you get there, or even before you get there, it may change. That's okay. Pivots are fine, but you have to have moving towards something, or you're moving towards nothing. And too many, as we look around, we can see, are moving towards nothing. They look lost. They have no aspirations. They have no direction. They have no journey. They're just existing. Our economy, our culture, our society will rot without a destination, without purpose, without vision. It will fall apart and into complacency and just pleasing your own desires, right? Self-medication. And your clarity of vision for your life, for where you're headed, will come in the process of walking it out. Again, you won't always have the whole picture. You certainly can't wait for the whole picture before you start. You've got to start walking it out. You got to start working it out. It comes in the work. It comes in the process of the work, like healing the wounds, like weight loss. When you start it, you don't have the full view. You don't have your full reward. You don't have your feast, right? You've got to create your desire. You've got to put in the work, and then you get the reward, right? But that's a continuing cycle. That's not a beginning to end. That's a continuing cycle that feeds itself and moves you forward. But it comes in the work. We have to be in the hunt. So let's get to work. Have a great week.